We are live, Brad. First of all, Brad,
Oh,
welcome back.
oh, thanks, man.
Welcome back to the States. Welcome back to the show. I got to be honest, I did a lot of talking this week, so I'm really excited for your
That
15-minute
last week.
monologue. Yeah, I'm really excited for your 15-minute monologue, and I'm gonna shut up now and let you have the floor.
What 15-minute monologue? You didn't tell me about this. What the hell? You just put me on the spot, put me on blast.
No. I'm
But
just
I guess
kidding.
I mean, yeah, I just came from the gym and I was listening to the last week's podcast, obviously kind of procrastinating it, listening to it 6 days later. Don't hate me. But some takeaways, were I think you mentioned that Sig would call Mendoza the most talented quarterback he's worked with, which I don't know if he would do that. He might be the most talented quarterback he's worked with, but I mean, the guy recruited Russell Wilson and Philip Rivers to NC State. That's why he got the Bama recruiting coordinator job when Nick Saban started building his staff over there at Bama. So I don't know if he would say that, but it could be true when it's all said and done.
I'm just saying, like, you start so I was when we were having the conversation before the show started, I held my tongue a little bit because my question to you is going to be, you're calling him Andrew Luck.
I
Phil
am.
Rivers,
I am.
Andrew
So
Luck.
in the reverse, like I really can't complain about that. I just don't think Signetti would say that. I might say that. Master of the eye test. Ich kann sprechen Deutsch. But yeah, it could be true at the end when it's all said and done. D-line production coming back, just like big holes to fill. CJ West just being the other NFL guy, NFL draft pick that we have to replace. That's gonna, regardless of how talented the team is, replacing NFL talent is easier said than done. I like what they did. Hosea Wheeler, you mentioned. We're expecting Mikhail Kamara comes back, who you'd argue he's better in terms of impact wise than CJ West. So having him returns huge. And then expecting, those two transfers, Wyatt and who was it? That's bad. I should know this. Wyatt
Stephen
and Daly. Yes. Those two will have huge impacts and big roles on the team. And then obviously we're expecting big jumps from Landino and Ndukwe. And if all those things happen, obviously I'm gonna throw in Tyreek Tucker, who I think's absolute playmaker at the nose. It takes a village, but I think we can get it done. And then obviously and then another takeaway with the O-line, I think we were super lucky to have, I think we talked about before the pod, we were just super lucky to have Tyler Stevens just around last year because really we were, after the Kidwell injury, we had 6 playable linemen last year. That's just, that was the reality of the situation. So when Drew Evans went down, it was Stevens, and then we really didn't have anyone back there. We were just praying that they could all stay healthy throughout the rest of the year, and they did. Thank God. And yeah, I think having 8 deep this year, we talk about, Benson, Zen Mikowski, bringing in Pat Coogan, Drew Evans and Bray Lynch are back. Carter Smith's back, Carter Smith might be the most underrated O-lineman in the conference. He might be the best tackle in the Big Ten going into this year. And then having those guys, and then guys that we've talked about, Ajani and Austin Leibfried, who are now redshirt freshmen that are now going to be in the fold in terms of being playable now. I think we're in a really good spot in the trenches. I think that, and obviously we talk about, competing. How do we get to the levels of Penn State and Notre Dame and Ohio State, and how do we get there, and Oregon, and how do we get there? And obviously, I think a lot of, casuals would say, you need skill guys, 5-star skill guys. Obviously, that's going to be a differentiator, but in terms of getting to that level, it all comes down to the trenches. And what we've done there is really impressive. And obviously, if you listen to this pod, we have skill on the outside for days. Our DB room is probably our pod's favorite room on the team. Not that we pick favorites, but we love the DB room top to bottom. And obviously, we bring back our top 2 receivers from last year and bring in Robin Hemby, who was the best player on Maryland last year. So in terms of just how roster construction, I mean, we're just in a great spot. And that was my, it's almost like you were doubling down on everything we've said so far in this offseason. Like you said,
that's exactly what I was doing. It's hard to have a conversation with yourself. You look at
you did good though.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But no, I actually haven't answered your question because you're talking about the trenches. You're talking about potentially skill guys. Like, how do you get over the edge? Well, you do exactly what this Indiana University is doing, and you bring back the bison.
Oh, there we go. I think it could still be a uniform reveal, though.
I got to be honest. So if you've been living under a rock or haven't been on Twitter, or haven't got the chance to go check out the 2 promo videos that Indiana has released through the university's account, not just the athletics accounts. The two videos basically are teaser trailers for what is going to be the reveal of the bison mascot. Why do I feel so confident saying it's a bison, other than the fact that every single person on Twitter watching the video is saying that? The first thing you see in the first promo video flash is December 16th, 2024. There was a Twitter user named Evan Roberts that pointed out that date specifically was the date of a IU student government vote to bring back the bison mascot. So it starts with that date. You then have goes into the first of what could be 2 Oscar-worthy performances from senior associate athletics director Jeremy Gray, who plays Ray, the yard hand in the first clip, and he plays Dr. Yeagley Montgomery McCracken, zoologist, in clip 2. But just 2 really well done promos, and the first promo ends with Ray opening the box, and out of the box reaches what to me looked like a hand, and I made this comment on Twitter and got quote tweeted by Mr. Gray himself. But if you actually go back and look at what reaches out of the crate at the end of that first promo video, you can kind of see the hair and the hoof on the back part of the finger.
Oh,
so
it's fuzzy. I thought it was like,
yeah,
just like quick glance, like why I said maybe it's a uniform job, is I thought it was a football glove. I thought we were going blackouts. I thought we were going here's what I picture. I pictured black helmets, maybe with a throwback logo, maybe script Indiana on it in red. Black unis, black pants.
I
have
pretty sure
hopes
we
and
had
dreams,
these.
and I think my bias got in the way of realizing what was actually happening, which is
it's funny.
We're gonna have a bison mascot, and that's gonna be awesome because Purdue has the worst mascot in Power 5. So if we just do anything in that regard, we've already outdone them. So I'm glad that we're doing it.
Well, I was gonna say the first thing I saw was your quote tweet of the video, and so my framing of what that was going to be was, this is a uniform reveal. So when I saw the hand, I thought this was like an interesting way to release the new Fear of Gods, because the Fear of God uniforms got like mysteriously canceled in the middle of the season last year. There was kind of no explanation for that, and then I saw your thing being like uniform reveal. But then you take a step back. Obviously, you see the second video. The second video is there is some bovine material potentially near Dunn Meadow. And we have the zoologist, Dr. Yeagley Montgomery McCracken, Sid Parrish, a huge star of the second video. And yeah, it's just it's really exciting. They're almost like parodies. It feels like SNL in a way, where it's like these are the types of like things you want your school to do, just like interact with the fan base, bring on something entertaining and fun that people could latch onto. That's going to you're going to be able to sell merch off of this. You're going to be able to inspire people. You're going to be able to have a student mascot. Like, it's just, I'm a huge believer in vibes. I'm a huge believer in, trying to do anything you can to inspire the fan base, inspire people. And like, obviously you can see the reaction that the promo videos themselves are getting. Like, this is going to be massive.
I'm a big school spirit guy, so
100%. That's what I was going for,
right?
In a roundabout way.
Let me just talk about, like, I don't have it in my. I should probably change my tag right now in the video, but as master of the eye test, it goes beyond just sports for me. If I see a talented actor, talented singer, I know it when I see it. And Jeremy Gray, the range to go from playing as himself, I believe, in the first video, and then going, doctor.
I think his character's name was Ray. I think his name was Ray.
Oh, he's playing like some sort of equipment intern in the first one.
I saw, and I honestly, I wish I grabbed the tweet, because now I can't remember who posted it, but I believe the location number 1 was under Bart Kaufman, and location number 2, obviously, like Dunn Meadow.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know. I've been Dunn Meadow plenty of times. I mean, it's probably one of the most gorgeous parts of campus, to be honest, especially in the fall. So good. But yeah, excited to see the bison back. I think I think one of the things that, at least being in the West Coast where people are like, what's a Hoosier? And you have to explain that's, it's a native of Indiana. So to just have like kind of a symbol for Indiana that goes beyond just the logo and the word Hoosiers, I think will just go a long way. I think it's cool to put an animal to it as opposed to animal mascots are just better than human mascots. Period.
Well, dude, I'm getting.
Just look at Purdue.
I'm getting I'm getting a bison hat. Like that's. Yeah. I'm getting one. Like I'm gonna have a bison shirt. Nick's obviously iconic bison glass. Have a
What I want is a IU Bison driver cover. That's what I want.
Oh,
I want that. I'm copping that in a heartbeat. If I can get a driver cover that's a Hoosier Bison, that will make my dreams come true. And then John in the chat, good to have you back, John. In the famous words of Howard Schellenberger, the only thing between Indiana and a national championship is time. And couldn't agree more. We've said this over and over and over again on the pod, stacking days, stacking weeks, stacking months, stacking years. That's what it takes to get to, the pinnacle of where Ohio State was last year. And, it took them 10 years in between Urban Meyer and Ryan Day to get a national title. So, temper expectations. There can only be, I think people forget a lot in sports. There can only be one winner at the end. So, as long as you're doing all the right things and making the playoff every year, think the chips will fall your way one year, or you have that, that special group, the culmination of all things, and it's going to go your way. So I couldn't agree more.
You know who's going to help the Hoosiers in time, Brad?
Okay.
Class of 2026 commit. Well, yeah, the Bison for sure. Class of 2026 commit defensive tackle Gabriel Hill. He announced his commitment to the Hoosiers this past week. It was obviously the recruiting momentum they built in the class of 2026 has been massive. This is just another domino in the fact that like these dudes are just working their asses off, bringing in talent left and right. But this position specifically, defensive tackle, there was a bite-sized Bison piece about this, about how the mindset and the production specifically out of that position at this university has changed over the last year. But just Gabriel Hill, just the noticeable step up in level of prospect. Not that obviously, like we talk about, this group is unbelievably good at finding gems and finding the guys who are underranked, but like this is by all accounts a guy who's very properly ranked as a 4-star in this class, and this is again a massive deal. Like the class of 26 is now I believe they're number 32 or number 31 in the country, but they're a top 32 class. People are saying that this could be the best class since Tom Allen's class, where he brought in Omar Cooper and Carter Smith, among a bunch of other guys. I think this class is going to be like a clear step up from that one. And I don't think it's going to be long before they blow past that number.
Yeah, I think we've said the sentiment before where this is expected really to be the best IU recruiting class of all time, at least from a freshman standpoint. And yeah, Gabriel Hill becomes the top ranked freshman in this class. I mean, you talk about like Henry, you can have an argument, Casimir Hicks being number one in Indiana. Trevor Gibbs looks really good and might play right away, depending on what position he ends up at. No one knows. I mean, what is Trevor Gibbs going to play? No one knows. Lawrence Timmons, obviously having a son of an NFL player, that's huge. Shout out the Steelers. Chuck, if you're listening. Yeah, we got Lawrence Timmons' kid. Or no, his name's Lawrence Timmons. Who's his dad?
Yeah.
Is it Junior? Is it Junior?
Yeah, it's Lawrence J. Timmons is the Indiana.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was confused for a sec, but yeah, Gabriel Hill. Obviously, he's a teammate coming from Naperville, teammate of Jacob Bell, who's on the roster right now as a quarterback. So obviously, having that connection definitely helped. The kid offers Illinois, Iowa, LSU, Notre Dame, Rutgers, Tennessee, Syracuse, A&M, Wisconsin. I didn't even name them all, but I'm seeing 3 SEC schools. I mean, he's an Illinois kid, and you got LSU knocking on the door. I mean, he's clearly turned some eyes on tape across the country, and we were able to get him early before, June turns around. So that being able to lock in some of that quality, obviously these things can change as time progressive, and, I'm not going to freak out. Remember, Byron Baldwin decommitted like last September and then recommitted. So, things will change. Things will happen. Not all these guys are locked in until we get pen to paper in December. But Another huge commit. We're up to 9 commits. Tons of momentum in the last 2 months, recruiting wise, where 2 months ago we didn't have any commits. So seeing
and
this
there's
is huge.
Four-star Corey Amitri, I believe is his name. The running back out of Michigan's got a commitment date set for this Friday, I believe that is.
The number one.
Indiana's in the top 6.
So number 1 running back in the state of Michigan might be coming to Indiana and not So gotta love that.
Indiana Sports Connection. Yes, they are bringing the Bison back. I implore you. I mean, watch our show, obviously, but also go check out. It's on Twitter. I'm sure it's on Instagram and Facebook as well. But there's a couple promo videos released straight from the university that are, you're gonna love this.
And this is why we love John. John with the great nugget. In '68, the Bison mascot passed out because of overheating. For those that don't know it, Bloomington gets hot in September, so not surprising. It wasn't long after the mascot was no more. Awesome story.
That is an awesome story.
Really, it's a little soft reason to get rid of the mascot. I guess a student endangerment. I guess, but I mean, just make the kids sign a waiver. You know, I feel like there's no liability there.
Wait, Indiana Sports Connection says they didn't put eye holes in that thing back then. The cheerleaders had to lead them around.
Yeah, technology is really advanced, so I'm just excited to see like what it looks like. I hope it doesn't look stupid.
No. If there's one thing, I mean, I have a faith in this administration department, whatever. But like the branding, especially since Signetti's come in, has been so on point that for something as important as the mascot, I promise you, they're not like. If they mess this up, I'll come and eat crow. You know what I mean? Like they're going to nail this. I know they're going to nail this.
That's what nightmares are made of. I mean, just being in a box with no eye holes, you're just wandering around for football games last 4 hours? That's just,
it's just tough. It's tough. Okay. I feel like there's got to be smarter people.
Were you the Bison, John? Was it you? Was it? Man, that wild. So yeah, hopefully we figure out the eye hole situation and have a good looking Bison mascot. And yeah, hopefully it doesn't look too much like Marshall's mascot. We make it a little different because I think they have a Bison.
They're a thundering herd, Brad. That's much different.
Yeah, don't like it looking like Ralphie or anyone like that. So yeah,
or Alf or anything. Yeah,
we hope to have a little branding. And for those that don't know, I know there's some out of staters, non-Indiana people. Bison are native to the Monroe County, Indiana area. I don't know how many are around these days, but back in the days before, environmental impacts and stuff, there used to be tons of bison around the southern Indiana area. So,
and the bison is common.
Acknowledge that history.
I was going to say, the bison commonly confused with the buffalo. The buffalo not on this continent, so the buffalo is in Asia.
Yeah, it's a bison.
In Africa, I believe.
Yeah. Alabama has an elephant. Many of these mascots don't make sense. I like the elephant. Kind of, it's unique, I don't know what it has to do with the Crimson Tide, but
elephants and waves, Brad. That's what we associate Alabama with.
An elephant is my favorite animal, by the way. That's
you know what we associate Indiana with, Brad? We associate it with ponds. D'Angelo Ponds,
like Lake Monroe. D'Angelo
Ponds is being named as a cornerback to watch for the 2026 draft. There was actually a Pro Football Focus, I think, Instagram post that went out the other day that was listing all these guys out, and they had D'Angelo's picture up, and boom, 2-star recruit D'Angelo Ponds. First of all, evaluators swing and a miss. That's why Signetti will tell you day after day, stars don't matter. You look at 2 of the best players on Indiana's team right now, regardless of age. It's D'Angelo Ponds and Roe Hardy, combined 2 stars between the 2 of them. So it's funny to see somebody's going to look at that and be like, yeah, that's D'Angelo Ponds guy, 2-star recruit. But it's you actually turn on the film and watch this guy play and watch him just absolutely lock people down. It's yeah, he's going to be, he should be a first-round NFL draft pick. We'll see what ends up happening. But it's
yeah, we'll see with the size. He's definitely going to get knocked for being 5'9", but in terms of the way the game is going, it's becoming less and less of a factor. It's more about it's becoming a speed is probably the most important factor when it comes to evaluating defense these days. So, he has that. I know he got burned by Jeremiah Love, but that guy's a top 15 pick.
I've
seen enough mocks I'd be shocked if D'Angelo Pons is still waiting to hear his name called past day 2. I'd be shocked. And I'm gonna stand by that. May 20th. Yeah, he's going first 2 days, no doubt about it. It's just a matter of where. Hopefully he gets in a good situation. And rooting for him. But obviously we got to focus on the task at hand, which is winning a Big Ten title this year and playing in the national championship game. Playing 17 games this year.
You sent me Big Ten over-unders. We're going to speed run those in a second, but I want to shelve that. I want to shelve that for a little bit. I want to get through the smoke. NFL guys, Rourke, West, both signed with San Francisco. Those guys are, pretty, standard procedure at this point. Obviously, you're getting drafted, you're going to sign with the team, but it's cool to see those guys officially sign contracts and they're all systems go on that front.
Exciting. Purdy got his bag.
Purdy got paid. And I honestly, I don't think this is worst case scenario for Curtis Rourke. Now he just gets to get healthy, figure out his role, figure out how to be an NFL quarterback. And regardless of whether or not he gets an opportunity with San Francisco, this is a guy that's probably going to work his way into an opportunity. And if you're going to pick a spot to just learn how to play quarterback in the NFL, he's in the perfect spot.
I've always evaluated Rourke as a 10-year NFL vet in a backup role. He has to beat out Tanner Mordecai to make the team this year. I think he's going to get that done. I'm blanking on who the backup. Oh, it's Mac Jones. They brought in Mac Jones. So he's really just going to be competing with Mac Jones throughout this season this year, learning from Mac Jones and just seeing, where he can, find his own. And he's going to be that third quarterback on the roster. So we'll see. Always going to root for him. Maybe he gets in a game this year. How exciting would that be? That'd be awesome. That would be a hell of an episode that week if he gets his name called to start for the Niners. It's a great system to start your career in. You look at what it did for Sam Darnold way back in the day. People forget Sam Darnold was the Niners backup before he went to the Minnesota Vikings and tore it up.
Jaguars legend CJ Beathard could have won a Super Bowl there.
Beathard looks so good when he's in the Niners. So learning from one Shanahan to another, no relation, just two different Shanahan families that have very good offensive philosophies. And Rourke's going to learn how to be a pro, and that's going to be the key. It's really about the meeting rooms more so than, the field work for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's going to crush there. That's where he's going to dominate. So
yeah.
How about this? From Shanahan to Shanahan, from one Hoosier quarterback to another, Fernando Mendoza, they released the Big Ten Heisman odds for who had the best odds for each team. Yeah. Did you see it? Do you know where Mendoza ranked?
I believe I quote tweeted it, and I said something to the likes of, I think it speaks volumes to where he's the 4th highest odds on this list, with all this noise around Illinois and all this noise around other teams like Michigan and Bryce Underwood. He has the 4th highest odds behind Drew Aller, Penn State, Dante Moore, who's obviously got pretty good odds from Oregon, considering they've had two different quarterback finalists the last 2 years. So obviously the odds are going to lean in his favor. People who know I'm a little sheepish. Sheepish, is that a good word for that? A little skeptical about Dante Moore and his ability. Do I see him as equal to Bo Nix and Joe Gabriel? No, but he's definitely in a great system with Evan Stewart.
I like sheepish there.
Yeah, a little sheepish. And then Jeremiah Smith, obviously, I think that guy's gonna win the Heisman. He might win back-to-back Heismans. That dude's a dog. He's gonna make it real easy on Julian Sane, and it's gonna make him look good.
They just picked up a quarterback too. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, they picked up some D3 guy today. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Houston Baptist kid who didn't really get a whole lot of ticks, so they must have just really liked the kid, which is
felt cool. A little uncomfortable about the depth in the room. I don't know.
Interesting, yeah. Maybe Julian Sane's throwing ducks out there. I don't know. Maybe master the eye test strikes again. He's calling it. Whenever I watch Julian Sane, I'm not calling him a bad quarterback. I think he's a starter at college, for sure. Is he
Mendoza?
All league? I don't know. I don't think so.
I had Mendoza as the 5th best odds in the conference.
He just reminds me too much of Miller Moss. He's got the accuracy. He's a little small, but super accurate, decisive. But does that make him a superstar? Doesn't make him Penix or doesn't make him an NFL quarterback, like Luke Altmaier, great quarterback, solid in his like 5th year or whatever with Illinois. I don't know if he's going to get drafted. I mean, he's probably going to get a shot. He's probably going to be on a 90 man, but like I'd still call him top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten right now. Does that mean I think he's going to have a great NFL career? No. I just think I would just take him over a lot of guys in this league right now, but doesn't mean he has NFL talent. You know, it's one of those situations. You know, it's a completely different league.
Yeah, 100%. But Mendoza plus 5,000 for Heisman. So if you're feeling frisky and you want to take a chance on something,
feeling frisky.
Like those are crazy.
100 to win $5,000. Mendoza to win the Heisman. Whew. Man.
Brad, opposing fan bases just can't help themselves. Anytime Sig speaks or goes to a mic or something, you usually have the Notre Dame fan, the Iowa fan, somebody else like making a comment about Signetti. And there was a lot. Hoosier Comrade was the one that I saw that made me laugh out loud, so I'll shout him out. But he was like something along the lines of like, I'm not going out of my way to watch Marcus Freeman interviews, to this like paragraph about Kurt Signetti from a Notre Dame fan. It's like that is exactly the point. The guy's a lightning rod. Like when he speaks, you look regardless of who you root for. And that's a superpower and a huge advantage for Indiana, is like, regardless of the brand Indiana football had before he got here, when that dude opens his mouth, people listen. I mean, recruits, coaches, pundits, but like when he talks, like, trust me when I tell you, like, the 5 stars are listening, regardless of if they're going to have those conversations yet. But like, jumping ahead a little in my notes, like that Coach Ola Adams was out in Arizona this week, and he's offered a 5-star in the class of 27. So it's like there are believers out there, man, and it's not great.
Notre Dame fans are one of those believers. I mean, if you're going out of your way to watch an opposing coach press conference, like I don't even watch my own head coach's press conference, let alone someone else's. So the fact that you're going out of your way to watch Signetti and writing paragraphs about it, talking about how he's not great, makes me think that you actually think that he's probably great, and you're a little scared about it because he was able to make it a 10-point game in Notre Dame in his first year there with Tom Allen guys for the most part. I mean, yeah, he brought in a ton of, like, he brought in James Madison transfers and was able to go to the playoff. Like, those guys were playing Sun Belt ball. Wait till he gets guys that come from Maryland or Pitt or Cal or Tennessee. Wait till he gets like transfers from those schools. What is that team going to do? And if you guys didn't pick up on what I'm doing, I just named schools that we literally picked up guys to play on our team for next year. So yeah, I think Notre Dame fans are a little scared than what they're putting on, and it's very telling when it's May and they're talking about how much Indiana and Signetti are annoying. It's like, no, they're just doing the press tour, like the typical stuff. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I think they're actually like, they probably, I don't know.
Well, PK's right.
Signetti, think, like, how do they really feel?
Signetti's polarizing.
Like, that's a sign of insecurity. It
yes,
really
it
is. Like,
I agree.
belittling other people in general. Like, right. So the fact that they keep doing it, and it's May, like, we should be talking about baseball right now. And they're talking about.
I'll take this time to acknowledge John's point. Everyone hates a winner. They hate the Yankees too. Well, I agree, but I also hate the Yankees. So
yeah, I hate the Yankees too. Go Dodgers.
Go Sox.
The Yankees lose.
Speaking of winning in May, Brad, Davion Chandler, finalist for Marion County Athlete of the Year. Shout out to Davion Chandler. He'll be, or he's got to be on campus already, I guess now, and he'll be there for fall camp.
Is he not going to win Gatorade? Like, is there an Indiana State Athlete of the Year? Because I feel like he'd be up for that as well, just being the caliber of football player he is and the type of season he had in track this year, being a state champion in the hurdles. So I feel like he would have, if there's an award for that, I feel like he's going to win that Marion County. He did win that, right?
No, I think he's a finalist.
Finalist? Well, he's going to win that. I'd be shocked.
He should win that.
I'd be shocked. I feel like for an athlete like him, he should be striving for like Gatorade State Athlete of the Year, if that exists, something like that.
Doesn't it exist? I swear that exists for every state. Somebody in Indiana is going to have to fill us in. Another Hoosier who's been on campus for the spring, but Hollywood Bell, I believe it was his father, tweeted out a picture of his state championship ring that they got. That thing was iced out. Hollywood Bell ends his high school career with a state title, coming in to inject some youth and some much needed energy into the Indiana secondary. I'm super pumped to watch him this year.
He's just adding fuel to the fire. It's not needed. It's just
I think juice is needed everywhere.
We just have Hollywood Bell just waiting around. He's probably not going to play for a couple of years, and he's just super talented.
I don't know, man. Like that's just
guy. We keep having the same conversation about the DBs. Like we're so loaded on the front end. It's just going to be hard for these talented young guys to get tick. And,
God, there's so many of them.
They're going to have to find roles, and it kind of makes me scared about the portal next year. But I think we'll.
No, I don't think so because they're like because if you think about it, like Pons is going to have an awesome year. Then he goes right. Like they have Jamari Sharp, is he a junior or a senior? I believe he's a senior, right?
Sharp has to be a senior by now. Yeah.
Like he was a Tom Allen guy. So like they're gonna be like Amari Farrell is like hopefully you can hold on to that kid for another year, but he's probably gone. Like Lewis Moore is gonna age out. Like there's gonna be spots that open up on the secondary. Like so I'm not crazy worried about all these guys hopping in the portal, especially the ones that are probably gonna contribute this year, at least in some way, shape, or form, whether it's special teams, whether it's in the second or third units when we're destroying people. But yeah, I think a lot of these guys are really bought in and understand the track they're on, where it's like, okay, year one, maybe I'm not going to play a ton. Year two, I'll probably play a little bit more, but that's how you look at these football factories. Like that's how this works. 1, 2, 3, and boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. And so like, yeah, you want to load the chamber with guys that are insanely talented. Like somebody like Hollywood Bell probably goes to a school in a lesser conference and starts as a freshman. You know what I mean? So it's like to have a type of kid like that, like him and Byron Baldwin Jr. and Cianta Stewart are all in the same class, all in the same defensive backfield, and Zachary Smith. Like all these guys are the same age, can grow together, and it's like that's the super exciting part.
Yeah, I think obviously I'm not in the room, but I think what Signetti does really well is I think he has kids that understand, like you said, the track that they're on, right? Like when you look at the guys that left Indiana for the portal, it wasn't anyone that they're all older guys besides like Josh Philistine, who probably realized he's not as good as Dontre Henderson and ended up going somewhere smaller. And they're just guys that just weren't going to ever really contribute for Indiana. And that's just the reality of the situation. I guess what I'm surprised about is besides like bringing in Brady Daly and Wyatt, I haven't really seen too much.
Yeah, I know. And we're coming up on a dead period.
I feel like we have like 5 scholarships open, and it's just a little surprising. I'm not concerned by any means because I think if we run this team out right now, I think we win 10 games, no doubt in my mind. But it would be nice to, add some more luxuries to this team, and we'll see what happens down the line. I think you mentioned on last week's pod linebacker depth, right? Like we love Hardy and Isaiah Bones-Jones. We think they can start for this team next year. Why not bring in another guy? Like when you have the room, you have the room, but they're not going to bring in anyone that they think can mess up the culture. So if anything, it's kind of a good thing because they can bring in a bigger freshman class for next year, have spots available in the portal next year, things like that. And they're not going to waste scholarships. They're not just going to give a scholarship to a Dallas James type just to fill a hole, And I like that, I like that they don't do that.
No need for Dallas James to catch a stray.
Oh, he's getting strays all day. Trust me. That was one of the worst scholarship decisions I've ever seen in my 26 years of watching sports. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. That's whatever. But I stand by it. Maybe a little harsh, but I just don't think he was Big Ten quality. I'm sorry. He's just not. He was 7 feet, so maybe helped in practice.
Here's something that I did do though, Brad. I figured out TikTok edits, and I'm getting better by the day.
Big time.
So the Omar Cooper Jr. Mossing Tour, obviously 2025 coming to a city near you. But go check out the Sigs Inside Pod TikTok page. I'm working my way up in the edits game, so expect to see some really exciting Indiana content on a platform that there's not really content on. So I'm excited to kind of explore that. But there is content on Twitter, Brad, and I don't know if you were able to read the whole Big Ten huddle post that you retweeted. I believe it copped a retweet from Signetti too. But it was one of the first times where, not the first time, but a bigger outlet, and this isn't a national outlet, but it's somebody with a decent following on Twitter, basically sticking their neck out there and like putting their foot down, be like, no, this Indiana football team's gonna be good, and here's why. And it's for the same reasons me and you have been just screaming, and any Indiana fan has been screaming for the last 6 months, is like, if you take away the bias and you just look at the football activities going on here in the last 18 months, like it's just it operates like a high level football program does. And so it's cool to start seeing these like different accounts come out and not just like hammering down the team or trying to get clicks, but with like an actual legit analysis on like why this team can be good.
Yeah, I really appreciated Big Ten Huddle's post. I think they have a huge voice in the Midwest, and I think they did a good job educating, what we've been saying basically since February about where this team is at, and it's not what the national media is telling you. I think Joel Klatt's hip to what's going on. He sees us as a top 15 lock, a CFP contender, and that's how this team should be viewed. And I like, I'll say it again, I like that we're under the radar. I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts, because when we win 10 games this year, it won't be the case next year.
Well, I'm going to say, like,
but if
they are under the radar somehow, but they even, but like, somebody said this, and again, I got to start really pulling these tweets, but like, there was a Pete Thamel article about Indiana specifically, about not being a one-hit wonder. And for that to come out in May, to get national media attention in May about Indiana football, like obviously it makes sense given the year they had and given Signetti. But for Indiana fans, this is all still so new that like, again, it's like the opposing fans that think they're insulting us. Like there was an Iowa shit post that went out that was like, Indiana's gonna be 7-5. And the entire response was like, I can't believe I'm disappointed at 7-5. Like this would like be the third best season in school history. You know what I mean? So yeah. It's but no, there was the Pete Thamel article I thought was interesting. He used some interesting word choices. Obviously, the coaching staff was super fired up about it. I believe all of them retweeted it. And obviously, when you're getting national attention like that, but he called the non-con schedule Charmin Ultra Soft or Puffs Plus Lotion or something like that. Which, like, all right, buddy, like I'll battle the non-con BS until I run out of breath, because it's like they're playing 9 Big Ten games. They're playing 3 consensus top 10 teams in the country in the first 8 weeks of the season. Like I don't need to hear any of that garbage.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of echoing kind of what we've been saying, even like we all know pessimistic Indiana fans, right? Like we've gone through the mud in terms of having been really relevant in basketball for 25 years. Indiana football, obviously, like most losses in D1 history. And basically those types of Indiana fans will never, the idea that they'll just never take Indiana seriously, or football wise for sure. And they'll just go back to what they were. And there's definitely Indiana fans like that. But then once you realize, 3 All-Americans back on defense, brought in a top 3 quarterback in the transfer portal, bring back 3 starters on the O-line, all of a sudden bring back Omar Cooper and Surratt. Once you just think of those things, not even like the rest of the pieces that we have, just those blanket, bullet points, you're like, oh, like, yeah, this team could totally win 8 or 9, 10 games next year. And like, I'm bought in. Like I have roommates that are just like that. They've been lifelong Indiana fans, and Indiana football is just, an afterthought. But, he told me on the way back to golf, it's like, this is the first time I've ever been really excited about Indiana football. And, because even throughout the year last year, it's like, I know we're on a hot streak, but I know reality is going to set in at some point. And it did. But the reality is they won 11 games and lost to the 2 teams that played in the national title game. And they're bringing back 3 All-Americans, everything I just said, Surratt, Coop, Mendoza, 3 starters on the O-line coming back. And you just got to think, you don't have to think too hard to realize, oh, they're contenders still. They might even be better than they were last year.
100%. And last year, I believe they opened up, like the opening line was, I think, 21.5 or something, and it climbed to like 28 or something like that. They released the opening lines for week 1. Do you want to guess the line? Did you see it?
Our line for week 1 against
Indiana versus ODU.
Old Dominion.
37.5. That's what it should be. No, it's 23.5, and that's gonna get hammered way up. But yeah, if you're again,
I'm 2 touchdowns off.
If you're a Shark, yeah, no, hop all over that, because I was thinking the same thing. Like this is a game they're probably gonna win by 50.
Yeah, Yeah, you think Sean Asbury's there and Terry Jones? They'll be at that game for
That'd be
sure.
cool.
That'd
They
be
should
cool.
be.
I mean, if they're not on rosters, they'll be there.
And then the last thing I have for football before we jump into these over unders, then there's a couple basketball things I wanted to touch on, and then I want to get on kind of what I wrote about this week for vocfb.com.
Gotcha.
But Indiana's recruiting footprint is expanding. Like I said earlier, Coach Ola Adams was out in Arizona. Me and you talked about the footprint over the last two classes kind of being very, like, not localized, but very familiar.
Yeah, like very DMV, very
it was very much
Midwest,
the JMU
DMV,
pipeline, and then it was like
South.
the 4-hour radius that Sig talked about, whereas you're into Ohio, you're into Illinois, you're into Kentucky, and then obviously in Indiana. We're starting to see, like, there was a kid from Bishop Gorman that flashed up a couple weeks ago. Like, they're going after Luke Fahey, who's a Mission Viejo kid. Like, that's, you can't get more West Coast than that.
Shout out Mark Sanchez.
Yeah. So it's really cool to see both the recruiting footprint of this team expand in real time, and to do so with really no changes to the coaching staff. That's the impressive part too.
Yeah, they're just doing it. They're just doing the damn thing. I think one of my first, back when we were Six Inside, I would always go on tangents about how I dream that we can, really attack the West Coast and get those athletes. Because, in my opinion, I know people will tell me, Texas, Florida, Georgia, like that's where the best football players play. On the outside and quarterback wise, it's all in California. I'm telling you. Just think of the guys: Drake London, Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's a few others that I'm missing. I mean, Jared Goff, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. I mean, all those kids, just SoCal. That's not even NorCal. That's just
and
the part of the state. Wait till they attack that whole Pacific Ocean strip. Tons of talent out there. Arizona is one of those places. Tons of football talent. Well,
they're also, where else they're at, Brad, and this happened a couple weeks ago, but I think it happened in that gap where we didn't really have a chance to talk about it, but they're getting into those North Jersey power schools too. There's a conference of North Jersey Catholic schools that is like an epicenter of talent in the country. Like, they're sending like Alabama, Michigan, Big Ten, SEC, like power schools left and right, Oregon, like Indiana is now in there offering kids in the class of, I don't know if it was 26, but 27 and in that range. And like, obviously I grew up in New Jersey. So like, just seeing some of the schools that those kids were from, it's like Don Bosco and, it's these are like St. Joe's, Metuchen, and like, these are like really, really highly thought of football programs that, like, the East Coast version of these West Coast power schools, there's just not as many of them.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think it's a lot more fruitful in SoCal. I mean, I just wanted to bring up an example. Servite High School, they play in Trinity League, which is the best league in the country. We're talking Servite High, Orange Lutheran, Mater Dei, and St. John Bosco, who year in and year out, those two schools are in the top 5 in the country. And Servite High just had 2 top 10 picks in the draft, Tet McMillan and Mason Graham. They both were teammates in high school with Noah Fafita at quarterback. You'd think that team won league. No, they probably went like 8-4 or whatever. They probably went 500 in Trinity League because they had to deal with Mater Dei and St. John Bosco, every year. So the talent is insane in SoCal, and to be able to attack that, start maybe being able to attack the West Coast is only going to help this school, especially, being in the Big Ten comes with the advantages of being the coast to coast conference and being able to have a national footprint where it's not just in the SEC, it's just the South. I don't know too many kids that, grow up dreaming. Obviously Bama is a different story, but like, not many kids in California grow up dreaming of going to A&M and LSU. They just don't. They don't. They dream of playing for Oregon, UCLA, USC, and now seeing this Big Ten exposure. Ohio State and Michigan just won the last 2 national titles. I mean, these kids are dreaming of playing in the Big Ten and playing with the big dogs. So once again, not just huge for Indiana, but huge for Big Ten dominance, which we are a big pro Big Ten pod. And it's only going to help Indiana as the conference continues to assert dominance and dominate national recruiting. So
do you want to speed run over unders, or do you want to cover the 2 basketball things I have real quick?
What would make the most? I think
speed running basketball okay. We'll do basketball first. First of all, if anybody's has a heavy Twitter presence like Brad and I do, or if you've seen the driving dog gift from the Indiana Burner Army, typically what follows that, whether it's 24, 48, 72 hours later, some positive news drops about Indiana basketball. I don't want to go as far as to guarantee that everybody has inside information, but at least somebody knows what's going on when the driving dog gift goes out, because every single time it's happened from the Indiana Burner Army specifically, and not from, like, if you know the origins of the driving dog gift, please hit me in the DMs, because this is like one of my favorite stories. I love it, but it not very important. But again, when you start seeing those circulate the timeline from the Indiana Burner Army, like, we're getting some good Indiana basketball news at some point in the near future. I speculated it could be something to do with Luke Goody. He's been waiting the longest for the waiver, so it kind of makes sense that his time would be coming up. That would be a massive announcement. That kind of leads me into a couple of stat corrections I have for myself last week. Shout out to the listeners in the comments. I said something about like that Indiana wasn't going to break 14 scholarships as the roster limit. I got clarification that 13 scholarships is the roster limit. If you go over 13, it starts affecting the revenue share. So if Leal and Goody are getting waivers and are on the roster, that roster's completely done. And then I also said the Watt shot was the last time we played Kentucky. I didn't know they actually played him in the tournament later that year. And then they also obviously met the Cody Zeller, Victor Oladipo team, knocked out Kentucky in the tournament.
That's from last week.
Yeah.
I don't think I got that far in the episode.
No, you didn't. That was in the question.
I was listening to it before, and then we had a convo with one of our good buddies, Roy Donk. The Tuck sound. We had a good little chat with him. So so I got a little sidetracked. But yeah, all right. Yeah, I wish we played Kentucky more, not just in basketball, but you know how like
all right, so wait, hold on. Let me ask you this question then, because
football is my
let me ask you this question then, because this was the question that prompted the Kentucky discussion. Is this game in Lexington the biggest game of Indiana's season?
No. I mean, you would think the biggest game of Indiana's season. That's a loaded question, because obviously it's a rivalry and it's important that we win, right? But like in terms of just a philosophical, as a hoops junkie myself, like you gotta treat every game the same. I mean, you just gotta hoop these guys.
No,
I mean, I know it sounds cliche. Right?
I'm asking you a question on a live. Yeah, PK is back. I was ready for PK to do a running fist bump when you said
our biggest game is going to be UCLA when we play them.
He says the next one. The biggest game is the next one. Brad's going
the biggest game is the next one. Yeah, no, for real. Like I'd say, Purdue and UCLA are going to be the two favorites going into the Big Ten next year. So I'd say those are going to be our two biggest games. Obviously, we play Purdue twice every year, so those 3 games will be huge. I think we're going to Poly next year, so that's going to be tough. And yeah, and UCLA brought in Donovan Dent. Obviously, Purdue brings back Braden Smith and Kaufman, so they're going to be good as well. It's going to be, I'd say I'd rank those bigger than Purdue, because those are Big Ten matches, right? Like obviously beating Kentucky and Lexington is going to be huge when it comes to a resume come March, right? Like, so in that sense it is, but to call it the biggest game of the season when it's going to be played in December is, I think, a little ludicrous.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
it's a game played in December,
SEC,
right? Like,
and SEC matchup hasn't happened for 10 years because Kentucky's been ducking them.
Yeah,
like,
it's a big game.
Culturally, it's a big deal. I do see the point though, and I concede. That's fair.
Yeah, I think UCLA and Purdue are going to be more important, because not only does that affect the resume at the end of the year, it also affects the Big Ten standings, hence the Big Ten tournament. Where are we standing there? Obviously, if you ever listen to this pod, I don't care about the tournament. I don't think the tournament affects seeding in any capacity.
It clearly does.
Hence Michigan getting a 5 seed, even though they went to the championship game in the Big Ten. But I digress. It doesn't, that's it's all about just getting to the tournament, and obviously that makes Kentucky a huge game. But I'd weigh at UCLA and then the home and home against Purdue with a little more weight because I think they're going to be better than Kentucky, right? So I'd say those games are bigger.
I like it.
IUBB is 1 year away, says PK. Dude, they haven't practiced yet.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I said this last week on the show, but obviously the way the team set up to me screams we're set up for the tournament versus we're set up for Big Ten play. So if you can get in, like, this is a team that you get hot over 2 weeks, and who knows where shooting takes you. So I don't necessarily want to discount a guy coaching his son for the last year, how much effort they're going to put in to try and be good. Like, I actually enjoy that underlying storyline of, like, this is the last year that Darren DeVries gets to coach Tucker DeVries, unless he goes on to they both go on to the NBA, and who knows with that, right? Like, so like that's a big deal. So I'm assuming they're going to want to try and put their best foot forward this year. So,
oh, Jay Wizzle, get out of here. Get out of here. They couldn't handle the physicality, Jay Wizzle. Jay Wizzle says the mighty Arizona Wildcats would rule the Big Ten. Caleb Love is gone, buddy. They're gone. Give me a name, Jay Wizzle. Who they bring in? Give me a name.
Lots of top 10 players are visiting.
Hope you're right. Keep waiting on the ghost of night to hurry and get here. Oh, I honestly, he brings up Koa Pete. As master of the eye test, I can tell you Koa Pete is not the 7th best player in this class. He's ranked like 7 or 8, 9. I think I've known about Koa Pete what feels like 10 years. I've known about Koa Pete since he was the number. I think when this class came out originally as sophomores, Koa Pete was ranked number 1 because he was a kind of a man child, right? I think Koa Pete's going to be a really good player and most likely a one and done. I'm getting sidetracked with Arizona hoops right now, but yeah, big fan of Koa Pete as master of the eye test.
No, it's fine. It's giving me a chance to write down this chart that I should have done before the.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Because I'm gonna track what we do for these Big Ten over unders.
Yeah.
So
I would love Indiana to go play Arizona. That'd be a fun game. And Jay Wizzle will go. We'll go if that ever happens. So I'll see what I can do. I'll see what strings I can pull. I'll talk to Jeremy Gray about it. And
by that time, he's gonna have multiple. He's gonna have multiple Oscars by that time, and you'll never be able to get in contact with him.
He's gonna be too big for me. He's gonna be A-list. So
yeah.
It's gonna be tough.
All right, Brad. Big Ten over unders. Did you get a chance to peruse the list? Because here in my head, the way I want to do this is, I think we go speed run now, and I think in 6 weeks when we're previewing the season, we take a real serious look at each roster, each schedule, and
when the Phil Steele book comes, when I get my
exactly.
Phil Steele book,
and I think we might be under 30 days, Brad.
For Phil Steele, we're close.
We're getting close.
Thanks, Big Goom. Thanks for big leaguing, man. That wasn't my intent, Jay Wizzle. I'm trying to, I would love for Indiana to play Arizona is the big point here. That's for Jay Wizzle, Pro cat.
And from a UCLA fan too, that took a lot of guts, a lot of courage.
Big Ten I know. I'm supposed to hate Arizona. They're one of my least favorite basketball programs, but I'll give respect. It's like the Purdue.
I knew we should have done over unders first.
All right, you want to run through it? I want to go bottom.
Big
up.
Ten football over unders.
All right, yeah, just throw them at me.
No, I don't want to go bottom up because I'm probably going to say something positive about the team that's projected to finish last, and I don't want to do that yet. All right, let's start at the top. Number 1, Ohio State. Over under 10.5 wins. What do you think?
Over.
I'm going to say under.
A 10.5? Under. I think they get 10. I'm going to go under. Quick under.
They had.
I think they're susceptible.
Obviously, quick speed run. They had 14 guys drafted.
Daryl Smith, if you're a Notre Dame fan, not scared
Daryl
of
Smith,
Indiana.
you're in our chat, dude. What are you talking about? You're the one watching us talk about Indiana football.
Property, Daryl Smith. Beachfront property.
It's free.
All right, moving on. Or worried. All right, double down. Beachfront property.
Thanks
for
listening,
validating our
Daryl.
whole point that we
Yeah,
made.
it's literally our point.
So funny.
God, you're a gem. You are a gem, Daryl.
That's so good.
Oregon, 10.5.
So good. Oh man, I'll see you in January. All right. Let's go.
Oregon, 10.5.
Over.
Over.
I think the defense continues. Dan Lanning system. Offense is set up for success. Evan Stewart, the big highlight there. They brought in a big time tackle as well. I think Dante Moore is set up for success. It's really about him just not fucking it up. If we're gonna be honest. That's really what it comes down to. And he's a very talented kid. Did he figure out the decision making? I don't know. Remains to be seen. But I'm gonna lean over with Oregon.
I feel like because I already gave ourselves the scapegoat if we're going to do this again in 6 weeks, that I'm going to be very aggressive here. And it does feel counterproductive because I'm going to use the opposite point to boost up Indiana. But Ohio State, Oregon, I think Oregon had 10 guys drafted last year, school record. At some like you saw what happened to Michigan. When you saw what happened to Michigan when they had to replace that level of NFL talent. It's hard. Like you made the point. It's really hard to do to replace 8 NFL guys. So I'm going to say under for Oregon. That doesn't mean I don't think they're a 10-win football team, but like I think Indiana can go into Eugene and beat them. So if they're going to lose to Indiana and they're going to lose to 2 other teams, they're like if they play like a Penn State or an Ohio State or whatever they play, like I could see them being a 10-2 team.
Yeah, I could see that too, especially considering I'm already projecting an Indiana win in Eugene. So the fact that I went over basically means that I think Oregon's going to beat everyone besides Indiana this year. So take that for what you will.
Penn State is the last Big Ten team at this 10.5 number. What do you think?
I mean, they seem like the darling in this year. I'm a big James Franklin fan. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary flack. And after we do this, we got some comments to follow up on. But I'm leaning over with Penn State as well. Remember, we had 4 teams in the Big Ten with 11 wins to end last year. So, could happen again very well this year. So we'll see what happens, but I'm leaning over with Penn State. So we got Ohio State under, Oregon, Penn State overs. There we go.
The Indiana Hoosiers, Brad.
Over.
Your 4th ranked team in the conference, according to Vegas. 8.5 is the total. It's their highest win total of all time.
Yeah, because we put the floor at 8.
Hammer the over.
The floor is 8.
Hammer the over.
Hammer the over.
I'm gonna get I'll get a prop hammer, a giant hammer.
Yeah.
Hammer the over. Give me easy money. Michigan 8.5. This one's intriguing to me because it all hinges on Underwood. And I know we rated him highly in our quarterback rankings and then caught a ton of flack in the chat. And I was like, maybe the chat's right. God, they spent so much money. I feel like they're an 8-win team though.
I feel like their floor is always going to be like 7-5, what they were last year, right? So an 8.5,
and they have an easy schedule. They have such an easy schedule.
And they have a cake schedule. I'm leaning over for Michigan, which doesn't mathematically. This is starting to not make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, for you it doesn't make much sense. For me, it makes a little bit more sense. Illinois 7.5. Here's where it gets tough for you, Brad, because I know you're gonna like
Illinois 7.5.
Yeah, they have an easy schedule too.
I mean, that's a tough number too.
It is. I like the over for them, but I don't. I again 8 wins.
Barely. Like I feel like they're 8-4. I feel like they're gonna have a good year. I think they're a solid team, but 8-4, 9.
These are teams that I'm really gonna like. For a team like Illinois, like I'm gonna have to look at stare at their schedule. And be
I'm not even looking at the schedules going through this. I'm just going gut check. I think Illinois is gonna be great. I think the Big Ten is gonna be very strong next year.
I agree,
which is why I'm saying overs a lot. Because
I just think.
Yeah, Oregon and Ohio State have a lot to replace, but then you have they're always good. And then you have Penn State, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, USC, UCLA, Michigan State, all on the rise right now. Wisconsin, year 2, year 3 with Fickle. I mean, you can't write them off either. So it's a interesting conference going into the next year, especially with Indiana in the fold. It kind of throws a whole wrench into kind of everyone else, every other program's plans.
No, 100%. It throws a wrench into any 5-year plan anybody had before 2024. Like just complete, like light it on fire because now you have to account for another behemoth that didn't exist.
Yeah.
They're coming.
Jay would
Iowa 7.5. There's 1, 2,
Iowa
3.
7.5. I love the under
Yeah.
there. I love that under.
There's 5 teams in the 7.5 tier. I also like the under. To be like much like our friend much like our friend Daryl Smith, I was listening to some Iowa videos trying to get an idea of what we're going up against. There are so many more holes on this Iowa team than I anticipated. I thought they were like locked down on the offensive line, locked down on the D line, like good. The secondary and the wide receivers might be the strength of this Iowa team. And so I'm not really loving what I'm hearing from their fans. Maybe they're just pessimistic and kind of fed up with what's going on there, but was pleasantly surprised by how many questions they had about their own team.
Yeah, very nice. And it makes going on the road there seem a little bit more doable, which is nice.
100%. I mean, they're not even sure Gronowski's going to be ready for the beginning of fall camp.
Remember my spiel about how strong I think the conference is, and I named like half the conference like 3 minutes ago. I didn't mention Iowa for a reason. For a reason, you know. So I think all those teams I mentioned are probably better than Iowa, despite I think Gronowski's going to be probably the best quarterback they've seen since CJ Beathard. Even then, I think they're not as loaded as they were.
2 Iowa quarterback mentions on this
like
podcast.
if they had Gronowski 2 years ago, they could make a run at the Big Ten, but it's just not.
If you had CJ Beathard over 1.5 mentions, you cashed. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Crazy. Nebraska 7.5. I like the under.
God, man, that's a no touch, by the way. But I'm under for Nebraska.
Yeah, that is a no touch. USC 7.5.
Over. You know how I feel about Jane Mayava.
It's the defense. Washington 7.5. See, here's where I start getting in trouble because I like the over here too. Like I'm a Williams believer. I'm a Jed Fish believer. Like they're in Seattle. It's not hard to recruit to that school, but it's just you have to recruit your region really well. Like he left a really good position in Arizona to take that job. Like
I'm the West Coast guy. I'm going over. I had back in the Six Inside days. Remember I talked about like year in and year out. I believe these 4 West Coast teams are going to be top half of the football conference. I really do believe that, and I think it's going to start year 2. I think they're learning. They're going to adjust, and I think Washington's in for a decent year. With the
you're not getting into the Big Ten. You're not getting into the Big Ten if you're not putting in as much effort as humanly possible to be elite at football. When you have the opportunity to take whoever you want to take, you're going to take the best of the best. So it's like it's not an accident that it was Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA. Obviously location, but like those schools also spend a shitload of money and care about their athletic standing, and so that's obviously why they're in the conference. Yeah, Minnesota
so
6.5.
They're building a program. I like Jed Fish, like Jay Wizzle's kind of saying in the chat, building a program. I know you're really sad that he left Arizona for Washington, but you know, got to go to play Power 2 football. You know, that's how it goes. So I like Washington to hit their over this year. I haven't looked at their schedule though, so this could change. You know, come the
that's what I said. We have the skate 6 weeks from now. We're doing this again, so come on back and see if we.
If anyone wants to clip this, you know, just remember
we're doing it again. So it's jokes on you. Minnesota 6.5.
They lose Brosmer, and I feel like that was a big part of what they did. I'm a big PJ Fleck guy. I gotta lean under. I think they can probably scrape out 6-6, but like I said, I think the conference is really strong at the top. So it's going to be tough for these teams with holes to manufacture wins.
Fleck's another guy like Rule, and I'm a little more partial to Rule just because I followed him a little bit more than I did Fleck. But it's just another guy who's like, yeah, this guy's a good coach. This guy's a good coach. This guy's a good coach. 8 wins, 7 wins, 6 wins, 8 wins, 6 wins. It's like, okay, cool. When am I going to see it? Like, I know a lot of Minnesota fans that are sick of the shit and that it's just all spiel and catchphrases and there's no substance behind it. And so it's like, well, I don't know when the make or break year for PJ Fleck's going to end up being, because obviously he does have a lot of like really loyal supporters, but like, if you're a Minnesota football fan, are you excited about the trajectory of your football program right now? Or are you like, when is this going to take off?
Yeah, obviously, you know, pretty mediocre results coming from Minnesota. with PJ Fleck. But I always circle back to this. Like we talked about, Bo Pelini and the tricks that can happen when you're building a program, and firing a coach that goes to bowl games every year could be risky. It could send you even worse than where you were before. And you can't always get a Signetti. It's like catching lightning in a bottle is what it is. And Indiana is in a great spot, and they killed it with the hiring, but there can only be one winner, game in and game out every year in terms of conference title and national title. There can only be one winner. So I think people forget that a lot and should maybe, it might be loser talk, but, kind of appreciate you going to bowl games every year, because coming from an Indiana fan base, not what we've experienced by any means. And if you told us 2 years ago you're going to hire a coach and he's going to go bowling every year, where do I sign? Is what we'd all say. So I don't know. I know there's a rich football culture at Minnesota. They have national titles and they want to get back to that. Easier said than done.
Absolutely.
I think continuity goes a long way too. So one day
there are 4 teams in this next tier, 5.5 wins. The first one being Michigan State.
5.5.
Mm-hmm.
Year 2, Jonathan Smith. Big fan of Aiden.
I like the over.
I like the over as well. I think they go bowling.
Rutgers 5.5.
Athan, Kaliak, Manis. Moline under. The last Manung guy. They do have one of the top edge rushers in O'Neal. That's just the guy that's going to wreck a game, make things a little frisky for like a certain teams here and there. Doesn't mean they're gonna win games. So I'm gonna lean under with Rutgers, which pains me because everyone knows how big of a Rutgers guy I am. But I mean, they really underachieved. They had a lot of hype last year, and they underachieved tremendously considering what people were projecting them to finish with 9-8 wins given their schedule, and what they finished 6-6.
I think so. I'm not even really sure, but I know if you're going to be a really good team and you're going to beat expectations, you don't have arguably your best or your second or third best defensive player leave after the spring period and go to a team that is going to be good.
Yeah,
like that guy probably sticks around. And Torre, right, is the linebacker who ended up in Miami. But if Rutgers is going to make some noise and be better than people expect, I doubt that kid is in the portal.
Yeah, and by the way, use Chicago sweatshirt. Just side note, use Chicago, original Big Ten member, by the way. So just repping a little bit.
You're just really repping the conference.
I just love the conference.
Here's one for you, Brad. UCLA 5.5.
Over.
Yours.
Hammer it. They brought in Nico. I've said even before Nico came, I probably would have taken the over, just because of what they've done. Like if they were rolling out Joey Aguilar, I'd be taking the over. I think bringing in Nico.
You think I'm taking the under on a Tino Sinceri coached team? No shot.
No shot. I think they're going to have a great year. They're for sure going bowling. It's more so about where they're at. Are they at 9 wins or are they at 6 wins? And that's just the reality of their situation. We'll see what happens. They played really well down the stretch last year. I think people forgot about that. They really came into their own, but now they're coming in with a same defensive scheme. They lose a lot. They are going to have to replace 5 NFL draft picks. Schlesinger, Jay Toya, Kane Madrano, just Ethan Garbers didn't get drafted, but he's on a roster. Devin Kirkwood's on a roster. They got to replace these guys. So we'll see what happens, but I'm taking the over. I really like what they're building and really good culture, bringing back a lot of alumni to help out with recruiting and spring showcases and things like that. It's not the same as what's going on in Indiana, but I think for what UCLA is and where they're at funding wise, a lot of weird things going on, lawsuits, things like that. Athletic department, it's been in the red for about 10 years now. And they brought in, who is that? Dave Myers, the Warriors, ex-Warriors GM. He used to play at UCLA. They brought him in. Bob Myers. They brought him in to kind of oversee things around there to hopefully turn things around. So a lot of weird stuff going on, but despite that, I think they go bowling next year by bringing in Nico. I think that was a huge kind of needle mover that they needed badly. So I think they'll get it.
The last 5 and 5 teams, Wisconsin.
Over. I'm a big Luke Fickell guy. They brought in Billy Edwards, who I think is a good,
Over.
placeholder. It's just tough to me to consider. I think this is a little bit of brand bias on my end, but just the idea of Wisconsin not going bowling for about 3 years just doesn't really make sense to me, comprehension wise. I think, brand bias. I'm taking the over, but yeah, like I said, this might be a no touch situation, like very similar to
Yeah,
Nebraska,
I'm with
where
you.
I don't really have a read on it.
Like Fickle could be a good coach and they could end up being good, but then Billy Edwards is the quarterback, and I've seen the ceiling of a Billy Edwards led football team. So I'm like, I just and off the top of my head again, I believe their schedule is tough, but again, 6 weeks later we get to do this again. So
Yeah, and in a loaded
I'm
conference,
not
you
a
could
huge
be a decent team and go
believer.
5-7.
Yeah, absolutely. The next team for 4.5 wins, that's Maryland.
Under. I think there's a couple bottom feeders in this league going into next year, and I think Maryland might be one of the boys. Even though I'm hearing some good things about the Washington Martin quarterback battle, so we'll see. I'm hearing a lot of hype around this Washington guy, and we'll see what he's able to do. He might be a game changer for them, but right now, in May 20th, I'm saying under, considering we took 2 of their best players ourselves.
And then there's 2 teams at 3.5. Northwestern. You're the
3.5. 3.5.
you're the yeah.
Oh my God, is Preston Stone good enough to?
I'm saying under.
This is a school that always tends to surprise people, but I mean, if they still had Fitzgerald, I'd be hammering the over, but they just don't have him there anymore. So I'm gonna go under. I see them as another bottom feeder in this league.
I agree. And then the last team, Purdue.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while to rebuild that one. I'm taking under. Where are they at? What, 2.5?
3.5.
3.5.
Here's my hesitation. There's a lot of people who think Odom's a good coach. He brought in a lot of talent. Whether that talent can stay on the field is a different question. We're talking about like a kid who was dismissed from the Georgia football team for conduct. So these are the types of people that Purdue is taking a chance on. That being said, like on the recruiting trail, like they're starting to build a little bit of momentum. It's like I don't want to be completely disrespectful if I start to see signs of life. I'm not telling you they're going to win 6 games, but I think they might win 4.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I think Odom might be a good coach, and I think this
They were
Signetti-Odom
so
battle
bad last year.
But were they bad or were they just poorly coached? Because like their 5
Maybe.
best players went to the Oregon, Ohio State, like
Yeah, it's
you
true.
know, it was like
But they're not there anymore. That
No,
even speaks more volumes to where this roster's at.
I don't want to keep saying nice things about Purdue, but I'm starting to see a couple like green flags out of their football program that don't exactly thrill me as an Indiana fan and make me feel like this is going to be a pretty cool football rivalry. And that obviously 66-0 is a message, and they competition wise took it the right way. Obviously you want it to kill the program and them to never be good again. But if they're going to take it seriously, and this is going to be a must see matchup for Indiana football for the next 8 years, like I can't say I can complain about that. Like I want to play meaningful football games.
That's true. And in that sense, I think we've expressed the sentiment that we want Indiana Purdue to be a meaningful football game. With that being said, I'm not going to mind if we have 3 more years of just belt the ass.
Listen, I like I just said, like I'm not telling you they're going to be able to compete this year. I'm not even telling you that they're going to be able to build a team that can. I don't know what the ceiling is, but I got to acknowledge that 3.5 for a university that has a decent football history and does care about football at least a little bit. Like this is a team that beat Ohio State in the last 5 years. So
true. Under.
I don't like it, but I got to acknowledge it.
Under. I think
so
I see it as a clear like bottom feeder. Like I think Northwest, like when I pick like Wisconsin over, I don't know what their schedule looks like, but like they're going to take care of Purdue. They're going to take care of Maryland. They would take care of Northwestern in my mind. So that's why, I just see those 3. When we did our quarterback rankings, those were the schools with the 3 worst quarterbacks, and I don't think the rest of the rosters are all that better. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah,
Yep.
plus 50 over Purdue this year. Yeah, I see that as well. I don't even know who their starting quarterback's going to be. Is it Singleton? Is it Brown? Who knows?
I'm just saying. I would be lying if I said I'm not starting to see some momentum for them.
Okay.
But here's the last thing I wanted to talk about. I got a bunch of my thoughts out on this for vocfb.com.
Wait, we got to catch up on the chat real quick. Hold on.
Okay, you want to catch up on the chat? Cool.
Yeah, if DeVries gets off to a slow start, will the fans remember Knight went 0 for January, his first year here? No, they will not remember that. This is my first time hearing about it too. And knowing IU fans, they won't care. They're insane people. Dan the Man Lanning is a premier coach in CFB at the moment, though Sig is the people's champs. Couldn't agree more. I think Lanning's the young face, young ascending coach. Sig's kind of more obviously an old head going into his second year at at the Power 2 level. So it's just a completely different vibe. I'd take Sig over Lanning, obviously, just because I like the experience and I like his roster building a ton. I think he's a great CEO of a football program. More so, Lanning's kind of learning on the fly in that regard, where he relies on the Oregon brand name for recruiting and obviously is a very smart coach schematically, both sides of the ball. So there's different things to like about him. So I like both those coaches. I think those are probably my two favorite coaches in the league. I think those are probably the two best coaches in the league. I think Ryan Day is probably Lincoln Riley right under them. Probably missing. And then James Franklin. James Franklin's right there with all those guys too. And then DeVries will not get off to a slow start. The fans will love the movement. I hope so, man. It's May. So I'm locked in for football. Iowa can't score enough points. I think they'll score more points this year. The problem is I think they're going to give up more points than they usually give up. I don't think it's going to be the same type of Iowa we've seen in years past, where it's a loaded defense and an inept offense. I think it's going to be a little more balanced from them this year, but under for them. And then I think we're all caught up for the most part. Minnesota's tough. We might be underselling them, PK. Maybe we'll see. Franklin can't win the big one. He went to the semis. Like, what does that mean? What does that
did he win
mean?
it? Did he win it?
Yeah, he lost. He lost the football game, so therefore he can't win the big one. Therefore,
yeah, there you go.
But
you spot the lie, Brad.
Yeah,
spot the lie.
Oh man, that's just there can only be one winner. Like right now, Signetti. Like if I want to be like unbiased here, Signetti has not won the big one. Just putting it out there. But we're 1 year in.
The end of Brad's time on the show.
And I'm okay with that.
Removing Brad from the show.
I'm just saying, it's all about perspective, people like throwing, all these blanket statements at people. And, I think James Franklin did win the big one by going to the semis last year. I think that's huge.
You want to know what else is huge, Brad? This is what I wrote about for vocfb.com.
Yeah. What is
came out
huge?
Today?
Yeah, I'll tee you up. What is huge, Keezer?
I'm gonna be honest. I found out about this yesterday because I missed the reporting on it in February. So I was like, my mind was blown while reading this Pete Thamel article. Only come to find out that in February there was an LLC created, and everyone knew that a CEO was coming to college football, or not just college football, college sports. Pete Thamel released an article yesterday detailing the power that this person's going to have. Basically, that they're going to have significant authority. They're going to make 7 figures. They're going to have subpoena power when it comes to arbitration hearings. They were selected by the Power 4 commissioners. They're going to report to a board of the Power 4 commissioners. And this person's going to come from outside of college sports and not be a household name to college sports fans. So this thing is full blown in motion. And the other thing is, this is not going to be an NCAA entity. This is a separate commission created by the power conferences that's going to be the disciplinary body of college sports, separate from the NCAA. So I basically wrote that the NCAA, as we know it as a disciplinary body, is dead. And this is the first step in what I believe is we're heading towards a super conference where you're going to end up having the Big Ten and the SEC. And it probably ends up at like somewhere between like 50 schools. And you have your Texas Techs and your Notre Dames and your Miamis and, your bigger brands from the non-power 4 or the non-power 2 conference. But like, this is the first step in just sectioning off college sports, and they're trying their hardest not to make them employees, but the answer is just collective bargaining and make them employees. But this is a fucking massive, massive deal, and we're about to see the singular most powerful individual in college sports we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's kind of a sore subject for me because it's kind of changing the whole idea of what college sports is. Obviously, it's kind of an inevitable thing that's been talked about for over a decade. By the way, I've been hearing about super conference since I was in high school. That was about, don't want to make people feel old, but that was about 12 years ago. And it's, I was a freshman in high school 12 years ago. Time flies.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then
we're the same age, Brad,
Yeah. Oh, we are? I don't know. Well, yeah, it's just I could be a pessimist and think about, reminisce on the good times and what college football used to be, athletes playing for their schools, love the game, no portal, no bowl games mattered, no NIL, and obviously I think at the end of the day it's all going to be for the better. I think it's going to be a good product, and it's going to make the quality of the game better. It kind of takes away the lore of what is college athletics a little bit,
100%.
which kind of stinks, right? But
It's
I think we're going to be
basically semi-pro.
Yeah, but we're going to be, which is what it kind of was for about 20
it's what
years.
it is. Yeah,
it's what it is.
These have to be paid. Like, and at the end of the day, like that's paying players to play is a pro sport, and so that's the model it's going to be.
Yeah, it was an inevitable thing, which is kind of the reality of the situation because things were just getting out of hand in terms of NIL. There's just no regulations, and these things need to be put in place, and it's only going to be for the better. It's made college basketball. NIL has already made college basketball better than it's ever been. It's awesome. It's great to see. You got players, staying for really good quality players, staying for 2, 3, 4 years now, as opposed to just going one and done because they can come back and get an NIL, right? And I think obviously it's not really about the bag. I've always thought that there's less than 60 job openings in the NBA on a given year. And the fact that we had 300 kids declaring early for the draft was just asinine to me. Obviously follow your dreams and I'm all for that, but like, it's a numbers game, guys. Like the idea that,
they can't take all, they literally cannot take
they cannot take everyone unless they expanded 10 more teams in the NBA. And that doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So, it's going to make the quality of sports better. I hope they don't this way, bringing it all under one umbrella and not just a college football umbrella. It's going to allow the other sports to survive, which I think is a great thing because I think a lot of people were worried about that. Like what's going to happen to baseball? What's going to happen to soccer, men's and women's? What's going to happen to golf? What's going to happen to tennis? These were all worries that people had. What's going to happen to D2? What's going to happen to D3? I think putting it all under a different umbrella is going to, a second umbrella, if you will, NCAA and whatever we're going to call this commission.
Well, this is separate from the NCAA, and I think you're going to start seeing this commission stiff arm a lot of the NCAA, and we're a couple years away from no NCAA.
Yeah, we got a lot of weight on and see what's going to happen. But yeah, it's kind of an end of an era, but I'm glad that bringing it back to Indiana, I'm glad that we're set up in a position to where we're in a great spot for football, which is going to be the main driver for revenue moving forward. And we're in a great position for that. And that's just going to help out the rest of our athletic programs like soccer, swimming and diving, baseball, and basketball, which are all sports that Indiana holds true and dear to their hearts way before football. Those were kind of the core 4 programs at the school. And having football where it's at is only going to help them in the long run, considering the shift in college sports that we're about to see. And yeah, that's kind of the end of my tangent. So, or not my tangent, my spiel. if you will.
And the other last note I wanted to get in there from the Thamel article was that the conferences are trying to work in a clause where the teams waive their right to sue the committee, but it wouldn't extend to entities that aren't associated with the school. So that, in my opinion, like boosters or NIL collectives, would still be able to do that, but they want to take away the school's ability to sue them.
The new commission or the CFP committee? Just the commission.
The new commission.
The new commission. Okay.
Basically the main responsibility for this CEO is going to be to enforce the rules. They're going to have final disciplinary power and say on all matters. The only way you can appeal the process is through arbitration.
Curious to see who this guy will be.
Exactly. And by the way,
though, I do have an interview next week, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, curious to see who's going to be named the commissioner.
By the way it was worded in the article, it seems like the decision's all but made. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that.
You're saying my interview's all for show? It's all just they already made the decision. They're just having me interview for no reason.
Yeah, I think they're like filling requirements. So like we need at least one host from every college podcast. So they grab you.
Or just like a really smart guy in general, you know?
Yeah. So like we need the guy who's read 10 years of Phil Steele. How do we?
10? That's selling me short. I have the last 14 copies, brother.
John says, I'm waiting on their phone call to get my opinion on who to hire.
Yeah. John, that's my joke. You know, I don't.
He made it before you, so I don't know.
I made a slight joke earlier, and then you know I'm not gonna argue. John, thanks for love you, John.
Shout out to SoCal Hot Sauce. Keep up the good work, boys. I heard a 72-team college student football league. How many teams do you predict end up in this league, and what happens to the schools on the outside looking in?
I wish I had an answer.
That's a whole. Honestly, that's a whole episode. That is we'll take a week and figure that thing out on a large scale. But I think the teams that end up on the outside looking in are the ones that are not doing what they're already there. Like you saw the way Indiana acted with the fire. Like to Purdue's credit, you saw the way they're trying to course correct now after how horrible they were last year versus like you look at a school like Northwestern where it kind of seems like they're just going to let football happen and whatever happens, happens. I think that's a school that probably ends up on the outside looking in versus like.
I'd have to think all the Power 4 schools are safe.
I don't think they're safe. I think you're going to have to demonstrate you're going to spend a certain amount and put a certain product on the field. And if you're not going to be one of those schools, then you're just like, I think it's going to be a monetary thing. And if you can't reach certain benchmarks, like you're not going to be in that league. It's going to be strictly sports based.
Interesting.
At least in my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all this stuff play out. It's so new to the point where it's like this has never been done before. So there's not much to go off of. Like, if you've ever heard me talk, I always go off history and like what I've seen before. This is something I've never seen before. This is something no one's seen before. So if I were to give any takes on what I think the future holds, like I'd be kind of just talking out of my ass, which I do a lot, but this would be a whole nother level, in my opinion, of talking out of my ass in terms of what I think is going to happen. It's
all speculation.
It's new territory. It's all speculation. So it's yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm a little sad. It's a little bittersweet, but I think in the long run, it's all for the best. I think the quality of the game is going to be a lot better. But you know, we're always going to remember, you know, those Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, like those. I mean, man, from 95 to about, you know, 09. Oh, you can even go as far as 2012. I mean, that college football absolutely peaked. I mean, that was just the best. The best. Obviously, I just said my whole childhood, right? But it was just the best. It really was. I mean, it became super. Obviously, it was already super popular in the 80s and 90s, but I think it took another step once we hit the turn of the century, right? With the whole BCS starting in 1998, right? And that kind of started the shift of the popularity of the sport. Ironically, 1998 was when I was born. So kind of, you know, it's kind of a fitting kind of thing. that, 1998 BCS era, and then we went to the CFP era, and then things started to kind of shift. And then now we're in this 12-team CFP era with NIL, and there's just so much going on, transfer portal.
And that might not even last
I think
too
are all
long.
good things, but the sport got so popular and kind of not so much got in its own way, because I think in the long run it's all for the best, but just like it just changed, because it just got so popular and so big time. And it's probably the most, like, besides the NFL, it's probably the most popular sport in the country, or at least the most popular league, I would say. Right? Like even when you're casual, you're still watching college football casually on Saturday, right?
I'm not going to say it's bigger than the MLB, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's pretty damn big. Is what I'll say. There's
but
people
no,
out
you're
there
right.
that only watch
It's
college football and
definitely
they don't watch anything else.
It's definitely
like we
the
know,
end of an
like
era.
Jackson Johnson over there at Voice of College Football at Alabama, right? Like I don't know how much he's watching besides college football, to be honest. And there's probably tons of people like him. So, yeah, the BCS era was really the best for college football. I agree. We had a whole season where one loss could knock you out. I don't know if that was the best. I think keeping the BCS, but then maybe having a playoff system with the BCS, I think would have been great. But yeah, like I said, I think the sport just got too popular. I think it's good NILs here, less money under the table. I think that's all good things, even playing field. But yeah, all these things were just inevitable, and it just kind of happened, and it's not a good or a bad. I think it's mostly good, but it's not necessarily like good or bad. It's just what happened, right?
I agree. That's all I got for this week, Brad.
That's all we got. That was a good episode, Pacers on tomorrow for all the Indiana people.
Go Pacers. We didn't get matched up with the Pacers for the first time in like 2-3 weeks. So that's huge. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean Pacers Knicks, that is one of the most not talked about rivalries, but it's huge. Like we're talking, small town market versus the Big Apple. We're talking John Starks versus Reggie Miller way back in the 90s. I mean, that's a series that I'm so I don't know if I've been more excited for a playoff series that didn't involve the Lakers than this one. I mean, I'm going to watch every second of that series. I think it's going to be electric. I don't know what's going to happen in these NBA playoffs. I'm leaning Wolves, Knicks, but I could be totally wrong. But I'm rooting for the Pacers. I hope they pull it off. Big fan of Tyrese Halliburton. He's our Team USA point guard of the future. He's going to be our starting point guard in the Olympics 2028. So, always rooting for him in that sense. And yeah, definitely rooting for the Pacers. I think as an unbiased sports hoops person, I got Knicks in 7. Sorry, Pacers fans. And then I got Wolves in 7 as well. I like them both going 7. So
crazy. I agree with John though. I like now because we won 11 games. Full blown agree.
Facts. No, that's a good perspective, honestly. Agree. Yeah. Indiana really couldn't have timed this perfectly, because it's like if we were good, like what does it matter that we were good in the 90s when this whole thing is happening? It's going to shift the whole landscape of the sport for the next 50 years. Like none of it even, like the 90s don't even, like obviously they matter.
No, the only thing that but no, you're right. The only thing that matters is being ready now, because if you get left behind now, you're going to get left behind, and the gap's going to be so seismic. It's going to take an insane amount of money to close it, if you can even close it. So
it's amazing what Indiana was able to pull off, and it really does. Obviously, that what's important here is that we
keep going.
Yeah, we win 8 games at least next year. If we don't, we're in big trouble. But yeah, like I said, I think we're gonna go 11.
Keep stacking.
So, yeah, keep stacking days, keep stacking weeks, keep stacking months, keep stacking years. That's what we're doing.
And check out vocfb.com. Again, I wrote an article today about a new CEO and the power that person's going to wield over college football. If you're watching on Twitter, hop over to YouTube, hop in the YouTube chat. We're interacting with the chat all day. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Alec Keyser. That's Brad at Bradley_Loomis8. You can follow the show at Indiana VOCFB on Twitter and Instagram. We're talking Hoosiers every week, every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. We're live. And yeah, expect some very positive Indiana basketball news. Expect another, I don't know how many more teasers they plan on dropping for the bison mascot, but the bison's coming. And obviously we'll be here to talk about it when it officially drops. And
I'm gonna bet you $5.
I'm
gonna bet you $5 to get another commitment for 2026 between now and next Tuesday. I don't know who it's gonna be, but they're gonna get someone. Someone's gonna commit.
I hope that I don't want to win money if that doesn't happen. I'll take that. And at some point at some point in the near future, we'll have Mark Rogers from the Voice of College Football on. He's gonna be joining us, and so I'm super excited about that as well. Appreciate you, Daryl.
Appreciate you listening, Daryl. I know we're giving you some flack earlier, but yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, we have a lot of respect for Notre Dame. Like, we're chasing you guys. So
I went to that Notre Dame game this past year. Super impressed. Blew away my expectations of what I expected, like the environment of Notre Dame Stadium to be. I always thought of Notre Dame fans as a little, Catholic, a little posh. I mean, they were loud. They were into it. I like that when they score, they do I obviously didn't like it in the moment, but I think it's cool that they do little push-ups in the stands. Did not feel great after Jeremiah Love touchdown by any means, but lots of respect for Notre Dame. I wish we played every year, and I do like the banter and the rivalry that's starting to build within the state. I think it's great for the game, especially with USC chickening out of this rivalry. Daryl, what's up with that? Lincoln Riley's soft. He's pulling out.
That's what the super conference is just going to save all of it. Don't worry. There's going to be nowhere to run when they're in the same conference.
Yeah, no, they should just schedule UCLA. That's what they should do. They should just go, just kind of, cheat on their ex a little bit, cheat on their girlfriend, and schedule a home and home with UCLA.
Appreciate you guys hanging out this week. We'll see you guys next week. Check us out on Twitter. Interact with us. We're active. So shout out to you guys. See you next week.
Cheers. Go Hoosiers.
Go Hoosiers.